Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. I continue with a series based on the document filed by Lex Libertas, Truth Be Told. These are testimonies of people who were attacked, tortured, raped, or killed on farms in South Africa or their survivors. This is an effort to show the world that the persecution of minorities in South Africa is in fact a reality. Now, this often happens through racial exclusion, threats to property rights, incitement of violence, and political scapegoating. Lex Libertas encouraged members of the public in South Africa to submit their experiences in one of these categories: farm attacks, racial exclusion and discrimination against minorities, threats to property rights, and general state collapse. The story I'm going to relate now is shared by Heidie Taljaard, a friend whom I've met in the aftermath of a horrific murder of her sister and her parents in 2020 in the Northern Cape. I met Heidie a couple years after this horrific situation as she was following the trial of the perpetrators who brutally and callously murdered her parents and her sister. The testimony of Heidie Taljaard. My parents, Dan and Breggy, and my sister, Elizabeth Brand, were murdered on their farm in Hartswater, Northern Cape, on July 26, 2020. I spoke to them on Sunday afternoon, and my dad told me that they were about to have lunch. On Monday, my other sister and I couldn't get a hold of them. We asked a friend to please go and check on them because they sometimes forgot to charge their cell phones. His response shattered my whole life. "I'm so sorry. There's trouble here. The back door was broken open. There's a lot of blood. We can't find them." With those words, your life as you knew it falls apart. Anxiety and desperate fear grip your heart, your chest, your entire being. You pray with everything in you. "Please, Father, protect them. Keep them safe. Bring them back to us." You try to believe, you try to hope, until all hope is taken away from you with the news that the police have found their bodies. It feels like someone is ripping your heart out of your chest piece by piece, and all you can do is sink to the ground in a bundle, and you cry. The kind of cry that tears your insides open, and then you know, nothing will ever be the same again. My sister and I identified their bodies. The shock and unspeakable pain of seeing your loved ones' mangled bodies, so fragile and vulnerable, changes you. The signs of the horror, anguish, and fear they must have gone through were etched all over their bodies. They were attacked just after Sunday afternoon lunch. We suspect they lured my father outside and attacked him there. Mom heard this and went outside to help him. We could see that they both tried bravely to fight back. Dad's hands were wounded. Mom had cuts in her arms and face. In the end, they trapped her in the house and slit her throat. The attackers loaded her body, along with Dad and Elizabeth, my sister, into their vehicles and drove them into the veld in Talon. The attackers hid Mom's body, and then they first killed Dad and then Elizabeth. Dad had more than 12 life-threatening blows to his skull alone. In court, we heard that Elizabeth was very likely still alive when they left her injured in the freezing winter night. According to the pathologist, she eventually died of suffocation. My sister and I have attended every court day in recent years. Apparently, the motive was to steal our parents' two vehicles, which were old and of no value. However, the attackers drove the vehicles through rough terrain and rocks, and both vehicles were completely destroyed. The 5 suspects were finally sentenced in March of 2025. They were found guilty of murder, assault, and theft. But they're only sentenced to 25 years for each murder, and they're serving their sentences concurrently. A cross planted for the murdered. Here the crosses for Danny and Elizabeth Brand can be seen in a field filled with crosses, each one representing a murdered farmer. This field is known as the Wittkreuz Monument or White Christ Monument. This is also the monument that can be seen on the front page of The Truth Be Told. Case number, Hartswater, case 103/07/2020. Now for me, folks, as an independent journalist, this story is particularly heartbreaking. I remember covering the story when it broke in the news and wondering how such a callous thing could happen. Elizabeth just went up for the weekend, apparently to visit her parents, and it cost her her life. I later met Heidie after she contacted me, and we met, had coffee, their family, and spoke about the horrors they were going through as the trial continued and drug on. Now that the trial is concluded, there can be no closure. How can you have closure when such horrible things happen and such lawlessness is allowed to pervade the countryside of South Africa, the callous disregard for human life, the sanctity of life, by an uncaring government that dismisses this horrible domestic terrorism and murder and theft because the victims aren't caters. They aren't connected elites. They're just honest, simple people living their lives in the countryside, black, white, and brown. And the callous disregard for human life is so tragic, so horrific, so unbelievable that people could do such a thing to other humans. But it happens far too often in South Africa, and the government doesn't care. They dismiss this and chalk it up to right-wing extremism or disinformation. The brutal murders of these three people from the Brown family aren't disinformation. They aren't misrepresentation. It's a fact, and it scarred the lives of many South Africans. Thank you.